Stephanie and Andrew Galligan are the parents of young hockey player Aiden, who suffered a concussion in 2023. Both Stephanie and Andrew are in their early 40s and live in Tampa, Florida. Stephanie is a lawyer and Andrew is a pediatrician.
He didn't know what day it was 3 days later. But it's the second hit that you really have to worry about because it's like your brain rattling around in your skull and the bruising and it can heal. But if it has like a 1, 2, 3 punch, typically within the same 6 month period, you're at real risk for long term damage. He was like living in a dark cave, like out of commission, not in school, barely functional for like at least 10 days, probably 2 weeks. And then he got back to normal slowly. They say it can take up to 6 months to heal, but at least for like a month, he was off for sure.
Was obviously headache and pain. He had a little bit of like light sensitivity, and then in the coming like days and weeks after, some balance issues. So he's pretty, solid on his feet, but you could tell he's a little off with that. And then just a little bit, kind of problems with not memory, but just how his brain was like maybe a little bit slower with functioning. And
Jacob Weaver is a former amateur hockey goalie. Weaver suffered from 8 concussions in his 12-year career, each with different symptoms. Weaver is a 21-year-old server who lives in Branson,
I had
Florida.
a couple where I blacked out, so that was like an instant grade 3. But those would take, I'd probably sit in my room mostly all day in the dark, sleep, eat, and then take ibuprofen and stuff until it finally everything the symptoms subsided. I was able to slowly start getting back into regular life, and then usually like 2 weeks after that, I'd finally start picking back up on the ice. But it would interrupt my school life a lot. Like I'd be out like weeks of school just from concussions.
P.T. Brown is a retired professional hockey player who also had his fair share of concussions throughout his 8 seasons in the NHL. Being in the league for almost 10 years, Brown learned the ability to trust himself as a player when it came to concussions.
You're not doing a whole lot. You're sitting in a room and just kind of resting. You're fatigued and tired, and obviously once you start slowly, they have a step-by-step process to get back, and it's whether it's hey, go do a 5-minute bike today and we'll see how you feel. Then the next day if you feel good, maybe it's a 10-minute bike, and then slowly working your way up to like a full exertion. Obviously, but if there's ever a step back or you start feeling those symptoms again, you kind of have to reel yourself back in. I think that's the important part too, is you have to trust your body, trust yourself, as a player.
Definitely a lot of headache, loss of balance. Light sensitivity was a big one that always seemed to stick around for me. Memory loss has been a kind of a thing. Short term, I have trouble remembering stuff. I haven't noticed much like longing effects so far. That could be later in life.
Professional sports leagues have concussion protocols, which a player must pass in order to start playing again after a bad hit or fall. However, Brown says improvements are still needed.
There's times too where even I cleared concussion protocol and I knew I wasn't good. So I could have, gone back and played, but I think, that's one of the instances where, I got older and I got smarter. Sometimes you say, oh, I'm just okay, I want to play. But, as I got older, you kind of realize the importance of your brain. As terrible as that sounds, like it takes that long, or getting a concussion to kind of realize it's not something you want to mess with, and I had to say like, hey, I'm not ready. Even though I can pass the test, something doesn't feel right with me.
Although no evidence shows that athletes playing with an active concussion can multiply their risk of developing CTE later in life, there's backed up research that shows longer careers in ice hockey can lead to CTE.